Hi, I'm Kyra. I want to tell you about my boyfriend and ask for your advice. I'm completely confused and I don't seem to know what to do. Please help me and write your opinion in the comments. So, a long time ago, I met a guy. His name is Sam. I fell in love with him. He was my first love. It's been about a year since we started dating. I didn't like him at first. My friends and I were sitting in a cafe, chatting sweetly, discussing gossip, and suddenly a rude guy sits down with us, introduces himself as a photographer named Sam, and offers us a photo shoot. Like, for him, a huge plus to take pictures of beautiful girls, and for us, a plus in high-quality photos. My friends looked at him askance, and I didn't even listen to what he was saying. Well then, he began to address me specifically, asking a lot of questions, and at the time, he sat closer and closer to me. I was starting to get stressed out. As a result, he finally got impudent, drinking my cocktail, and he cracked, slapped. He just laughed, and then said that we would fall in love. I twirled my finger at my temple and gave him the middle finger. Then he was gone. About a couple of days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up the phone and someone on the other end of the line started talking to me as if we'd known each other for years. I asked who it was, and he said, "So, what about the photo shoot, my love?" And I knew right away. "How did you get my number?" I asked, but he, of course, did not answer. I was very angry and told him to go away. 2 days later, he was standing on my doorstep with a bouquet of flowers in his hands. When I opened the door, I was just freaking out. "How did you get my address?" But again, he didn't answer. I was so angry at his insistence and obsession that I wanted to break his nose with a front door. Sam probably saw it in my face and said, "If you still refuse to talk to me, in 2 days I will be in your room, and then immediately go to your bed." Without asking, of course, he said confidently. "What?" I thought to myself. When I said, "What do you want?" he asked me to go on a date with him, and before I refused, he again reminded me where he would be in 2 days. I was really mad at him, but, well, I agreed to make him go. The next day we met again, and he took me to a drive-in theater and bought salted popcorn, soda, chips, and cheese. "We'll be watching my favorite movie, Pulp Fiction," he said. I gave him a disgusted look and grabbed a bag of chips. I must admit, I didn't watch this movie, even though it is ancient. To my surprise, it turned out to be gorgeous. It had everything and beautiful actors, unexpected scenes, humor. In general, I was satisfied and did not notice that I ate all the chips and cheese. "I like cheese too," he said, smiling. Then he got out some weed and lit a cigarette. I protested, calling him a drug addict, and told him to take me home. He laughed and started the car. "It's just a little relaxation, but when we meet, I will stop smoking. I promise you, love," he said. I had to admit that I was getting more and more angry at his arrogance, but then I even started to like it. In the end, yes, Sam and I started dating. Pulp Fiction has become our favorite romantic movie. We learned all the soundtracks from there, the famous M.I.A. Wallace and Vincent Vega dance, and often danced it after each date. Sam brought me my favorite cheese every night instead of flowers, and he quit smoking, like he promised. After a while, we decided to live together. It was great. We didn't annoy each other in any way. What I liked about him was that he wasn't mean. He didn't care about perfect cleanliness, cooking, and so on, as long as I was happy. And I was happy. I loved him. It took up all my space in my heart. I don't think I felt any stronger pull. I had a good time. And then one day, Sam went to the store to get another batch of cheese for me and didn't come back. After about an hour, I started calling him on the phone, but he didn't answer. After 2 hours, the phone became unavailable or disconnected. After 5 hours, I started calling our mutual friends, acquaintances, and no one knew where he was. The next morning, I went to the police. All night, I did not sleep a wink. What if something happened? Maybe old friends of drug dealers found him. Maybe he has a problem. I had a bunch of crazy options in my head. We started calling hospitals and mortuaries, but there was no sign of him. The police went looking for him, but when they found out who I was looking for, they said they were unlikely to find him. We know him. He doesn't have the most diligent reputation. He's run away like this more than once. We advise you to just wait, they said. I fought with them. I didn't want to listen and believe them. After a couple of weeks, I organized a search of my own. I gathered everyone I could, and we scoured most of the city. It took a month. My friends told me 100 times to calm down. But how can I sleep peacefully when a loved one disappears for no reason? This was my favorite person. They even tried to force the idea of his death on me, but I immediately dismissed such thoughts. I knew he was alive. I felt it. After 6 months, my hands began to fall. The last frontier was all sorts of fortune tellers, psychics. Everyone said different things. That he was in another city, that he was alive and well now, that he was in danger, that he was married. In general, a lot of nonsense. I wasted my energy on them. You know, for the first year, I didn't really sleep. I just kept sobbing into my pillow. The whole apartment was surrounded by his things. Everything always reminded me of him. I went to work, I saw his things. I came home, I saw his things. Our bed still smelled of his cologne, and every plate told me how we had dined together. I watched Pulp Fiction and roared and danced MIA's Dance with Vincent alone. Without my Sam, I had a huge hole in my heart out of sadness. Most of all, I was tormented by the obscurity of where he was, whether he was alive and well. I missed him so much. Time passed. Year after year, it became easier and easier. Gradually, I cleaned the apartment, put everything in order, gathered all his things and put them in the basement. I found myself forgetting the smell of him, and now the bed smelled only of me. I threw away the DVD of our movie and stopped eating cheese. I was completely absorbed in my work. 5 years passed like this. I got a new job where a colleague of mine was hitting on me. He was very nice and well-mannered. I couldn't help comparing him to Sam, the exact opposite. Maybe this is what I need right now, I thought. He asked me out on a date, and I agreed. I went home, took a shower, and picked out a suitable dress from the wardrobe. Suddenly, I heard strange sounds, as if the door had closed. Startled, I left the bedroom and headed for the hall, grabbing a knife from the kitchen as I went, and tiptoeing slowly toward the door. "Surprise, love!" shouted a painfully familiar voice. "Ah!" I screamed and almost stabbed him. "Sam!" burst out of my chest, and I lost consciousness. When I came to, he was sitting over me, patting my face. I jumped away from him in fright and stared at him like a demon. He began to soothe me. "Love, it's me, it's okay. Do not be afraid." "Here I am," he said, and smiled. When I came to my senses a little, I approached him and took the cheese. He stretched out his lips for a kiss, and I hit him in the face with the cheese. He just smiled and said, "My girl, I missed you too." Well, then I attacked him with screams and curses and told him to be damned. My hysteria, mixed with joy, anger, fear, and resentment, had to be seen. Then my work colleague knocked on the door. Sam opened the door and pretended that he had not disappeared. He chased him away, saying that I had been married for a long time and closed the door in his face. Dazed, I sat on the floor and stared at him. He had changed a little, aged a little, plumped, grown his beard. Then he began to tell me everything as it was. It turns out that on the day when he went to the store for cheese, on the way he bought a lottery ticket and won a round sum of money. He was so happy that he lost his mind. He took his winnings and took off for Las Vegas. There he made bets, won, lost, and lived to the fullest. He thought he'd make twice more money in a week and come back. As a result, 5 years have passed. I lost almost everything and still owe one mobster, he said. He won't let me go until I've earned the full amount. I had to work for him. A phone call? I asked, but he said he didn't think he would come back alive, so he chose not to say anything at all. And now he has come back to me and told me that he still loves me very much. I don't know if I love him or if I can forgive him. What do you recommend?